Hi there, smart drivers. Winter driving tips and techniques, strategies you need to keep yourself safe when braking on snow and ice, because you're rarely going to get into trouble when you're accelerating. It's the stopping bit that gets us into trouble in the winter time. Driving in the wintertime, bad weather, stuck in the damn gum ditch again. And there are some drivers that I talk to and they're just like, oh, I ended up in the ditch again. And you're going too fast, or you're not getting off the accelerator when your vehicle breaks traction, or you just don't have good tires on your vehicle. I cannot stress the importance of good quality tires on your vehicle in the wintertime. And I'm not even advocating winter specific tires. If you have M+S mud and snow tires rated, or you have the mountain snowflake symbol on your all season tires and they're in good nick and they have good tread on them, you're going to be just fine in the wintertime as long as you manage your speed and your space. And I'm going to say that again, your space and your speed. Your space is more important than your speed. All right. Okay. So for those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s. Running long haul between Ontario, Canada and the United States. I was in all of the lower 48 states except 2. Became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997. Graduated from the University of Melbourne in 2006 with my doctorate in legal history, which you may or may not know is the study of policing, courts, and prisons. Drove for Greyhound in one of the regional bus lines there in Australia while I was going to university. And if you want to know more about me, check out the autobiography over at the Smart Drive Test website. You can find that down in the description there. All right, great info, great resources. If you are working outside, driving, whatnot, look at this video, Survive the Freeze, how to dress in layers in the wintertime to keep yourself safe. I talk about that, talk about boots, undergarments. The thermal underwear is going to be the best in the wintertime. Layers, jackets, sweaters, windbreaks, those types of things. Ski goggles, if it's really windy and you're skiing and those types of things, you're going to need all of this in the wintertime. So have a look at that video. And then another short on disobeying regulatory signs, speed signs, yield signs, do not enter signs. If you disobey any of those on a driver's test, you will not be successful. So have a look at that short as well. And again, all the links for those videos are down in the description. So as I just said, windshield washer fluid, be sure that your windshield washer fluid is topped up. Be sure that you have good quality windshield wipers on your vehicle. And Corey will put up the video for you on Trico windshield wipers. I don't know how long ago that video was. Maybe Corey, you can tell me what the date was I uploaded that. It has to be 3 or 4 years ago now that I put that video up. I still have those windshield wipers on the buggy. Okay, Trico windshield wiper washers. I'm not being paid by Trico, but I advocate them. They are excellent quality windshield wipers. They're a little bit expensive here in Canada. I know they're cheaper in the United States. They're a little bit more expensive here in Canada, close to the $100 mark now, I suspect, but they are top quality windshield wipers. Okay, if you are running in goop and muck and a lot of sand and wet coming off the roadways and you're using your windshield washer fluid all the time, go into a fuel station when you fuel up. Make sure that you clean all the glass. Make sure that you clean the headlights, okay? Because you want to run with your headlights on, because when it's like this in the wintertime, it's overcast, it's cloudy. You want to be sure that other drivers, other vehicles, and road users can see you, so you want to have your headlights on. I mean, most vehicles, 11 days short of 4 years. Thank you, Corey. So it was 4 years ago I had those Trico windshield wipers, and they were like $90 at the time, and they're still going at 4 years. So they're good quality windshield wipers. Okay, stay away from sand trucks and big semi trucks if there's a lot of sand and grit and gravel on the roadway. I picked up 2 stone chips almost simultaneously. It was 2 semi trucks, one in the right lane, one passing, and I was in behind the one in the left lane trying to pass the one in the right lane, and all of a sudden just 2 stones kicked up and 2 windshield chips in my windshield on the buggy there. So if I can get it in before they start to crack, it's only going to cost me $50 or $60 to fix those. Now, if they crack and it starts to bleed across the windshield, I'm going to have to take it in and get it replaced, and it's going to be $500 to replace the windshield on the buggy. So know that for windshield chips and big trucks and those types of things. Tires, I talked about good quality tires. You want tires with good siping, which means there's big gaps and treads so they can pick up and get traction on the roadway, and they can get rid of all that stuff on the roadway, okay? The sand and the snow and those types of things. M&S, mud and snow rated tires, or you want the mountain snowflake symbol, as you can see here at the top, okay? Steel studded tires, a lot of places will not allow you legally to run steel studded snow tires. Here in British Columbia, we can. We have to have them off by the end of March. So know that there are some laws, and there's a lot of places that you cannot run steel studded tires. However, if you're running on hard pack, or you're running up and down to the ski hill every day, then yes, definitely have steel studded tires on your vehicle. Hard pack is basically when they can't plow the snow off the roadway because it's too cold. Salt won't melt it, and it basically you're just driving on a layer of ice and snow on the roadways. It's called hard pack. Okay, make sure that your tires are properly inflated. Look in your owner's manual, open the driver's door. There's a sticker there. It will tell you what the pressure is for your tires. I mean, most newer vehicles are all going to have tire monitoring systems that will tell you if you have a tire that's low. If you got an old car like me that I do, the buggy, my 1998 Honda CR-V, then you're going to have to physically check with a gauge to see how much air pressure is in your tires. Okay, stopping on ice, get off the brake, get off the throttle, and steer the vehicle in the direction that you want to go. If you're on the brake and it's sliding and you've lost, the wheels have locked up, and yes, I know that there's ABS brakes on your vehicle, and if you haven't experienced ABS brakes before, what's going to happen is you're going to get some grinding, you're going to get some pushback on the pedal and those types of things, and you're not going to stop in very much of a distance. So get out of the main tracks. Head to the right side of the road to try and get out of that ice and snow, and that way you'll be able to get your vehicle stopped, okay? Next slide here, loss of control. The reason we lose control of the vehicle in the wintertime on snow and ice is oversteering, so too much steering, too much braking, and too much acceleration. Any one of those things is going to cause you to potentially lose control of your vehicle. For me, a couple of years ago, it was before the pandemic, I was heading to Victoria where my rental property is and was on the highway. I thought there was another car in front of me that was going about the same speed as I was, and this is how I was kind of looking for the ice on the roadways. But I went around this corner and I just felt the back end start to break loose, and then I realized that I was driving on almost sheer ice, and went around in a circle, backed into the ditch, and it was because my speed was too high, and then I went around a corner. On snow and ice, if it is slippery, you are going to get into trouble in curves, corners, and turns. So know that. That is when you need to slow down and get control of your vehicle. Okay, slush and deep snow. We had a dump of snow here last night, like a lot of places did. And what happened today was it got really warm, up to around 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. We got a lot of slush on the roadways, and it gets wet, and if you get into that slush, it will start to push you around a little bit. So know that, and try to keep to the parts of the roadway that are bare, and try not to get into that slush and whatnot. And if you do get into that slush because you're turning or going around a curve or whatnot, get your speed down again. Slow down before the curve. A lot of winter driving, a lot of being safe in the winter rather, is about situational awareness. What is going on the roadway? What is going on at the intersections? Where am I? When do I need to start braking? When do I need to start doing all of this stuff early? Okay, if you're on the highway, definitely don't pass on curves. And again, I was talking about the Trans-Canada Highway going to Calgary from where I live. I waited until the passing lanes before I was passing the big trucks and other vehicles that were going slow. You know, it's just not worth trying to pass on a 2-lane highway when 2 kilometers up the road or 2 miles up the roadway, there's a passing lane. Why would you, no point endangering your safety doing that, okay? And Corey's put up the video for driving in deep snow, and have a look at that as well. Thank you, Corey. All right, passing large vehicles. Big vehicles are going to kick up a lot of snow. They're going to kick up a lot of spray and stones for the sand that's dropped on the roadways. Sometimes I don't think it's actually sand. I think it's actually sand with some rocks in it, and usually it chips my windshield in the wintertime, okay? Stay back so you can see landmarks and vehicles on the roadway if you're in behind a big semi-truck or whatnot, and be aware of changing light conditions, particularly in the winter when it's already compromised light conditions because it's overcast. If you're driving through avalanche tunnels or you're driving under overpasses, those types of things, the light is going to change. And if you were following other vehicles, their speed may vary. I've had this happen to me in previous driving trips where you're behind another vehicle, they go under an underpass, they get into the shadow on the roadway, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, something changed, I need to slow down. Okay, they're completely reactive is what they're doing. All right. Chop steering. If you get on slippery conditions, you need to go around a corner and you've realized too late that you're going a little bit too fast, you need to do what's called chop steering, which is you pull the steering wheel down a little bit and then let it release it, pull it down, release, pull it down, release. And what happens is it gets traction when the wheels straighten out, and then you can turn and you can start to move the vehicle around the corner. This happens when you get what's called understeering, is when you turn the steering wheel and the vehicle continues to go straight. And it's a very freaky feeling when this happens, okay? And sometimes if you're trying to make a turn, you may have to abort the turn to maintain control of your vehicle, because if you try to make the turn, you're not going to make the turn and you could potentially end up in the ditch. So again, losing traction, it breaks loose. Look in the direction you want the vehicle to go, stay off the brake, stay off the accelerator, and steer like a crazy person, all right? Skid control, drive for the conditions of the roadway. I cannot stress this enough. Manage that space in front of your vehicle to keep yourself safe, okay? Steer in the direction you wish to go. If you lose traction, use chop steering. Get off the brake and throttle and get out of the ruts into the snow, okay? So if you come up and you hit the brakes and all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I have no traction, I can't brake, the vehicle is not slowing down, move the vehicle to the right for those of us that drive on the right side of the road, all right? Okay, you want to move to the outside of the lane. Skid recovery, steer in the direction you wish to go. So there's a lot of controversy with people, and it's the language that I use, and you're going to have to steer where you want the vehicle to go. So if you go around a corner that bends to the left and the back end starts to come around, you're going to steer the vehicle to the right because the back end is coming around that way. The road is to the right, and you want to steer to the right. Now, sometimes steering one time is not going to be enough. You're going to have to counter steer because the back end's going to whip around the other way once you counter steer in the other direction. So sometimes to get it back to straight, you're going to have to steer in the other direction 2 or 3 times and steer like a crazy person. The other piece about that is make sure that you have your seatbelt on. Your seatbelt is not just for the purposes of protecting you in the event of a crash. Your seatbelt is also responsible for keeping you in the seat in the event of an emergency. This is why race car drivers wear 5-point harnesses. It's to protect them in the event of a crash, but it is also to keep them in the driver's seat, because you can't drive the car if you're not sitting in the driver's seat. All right, you can, but you're not very much in control. So wear your seatbelt so that you can maintain control of your vehicle. And if a crash is imminent, try and slow your speed as much as possible. Look in the direction of the vehicle you want it to go and steer like a crazy person. Again, you've got your seatbelt fastened, so you're going to stay in the driver's seat. Don't give up, okay? Too many people get into a crash because they give up, all right? And aim for something small. Don't aim for a tree. Don't aim for a boulder, because they don't move and they will do incredible amounts of damage to your vehicle. All right, so aim for something small, a hedge, a fence, something that is going to give way, something that is going to dissipate the energy that's in your vehicle. Because when we have speed and forward momentum, there's a lot of energy in your vehicle, and that energy has to go somewhere when you come to a stop. And too often, that energy isn't dissipated by the vehicle. It's much better now because we have crumple zones on the front and the front end disappears and those types of things. But a lot of times that energy goes into the vehicle occupants, and that's what causes injuries and fatalities and those types of things. All right. So winter driving, adjust to the conditions of the roadway. Have good quality tires on your vehicle. And I am not advocating winter tires. I'm advocating mountain mud and snow tires, or the mountain snowflake symbol. Both of those will do you well. Skid control, if you lose traction, you break traction, get off the brake, get off the throttle, and steer the vehicle in the direction you want to go. If a crash is imminent, reduce your speed as much as possible. Try to get offline. Don't hit something square on. Don't aim for a tree. Don't aim for a rock. Aim for something that's going to break, like a fence or a shrub or a hedge or something like that. All right. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. KGB, good evening from Ajax, Ontario. We did get snow, freezing rain, and rain today in the Greater Toronto area. Yes, and Allure, wide drivers here in Edmonton, still very fast, even though it's almost zero visibility. Allure, people still think they can drive in the wintertime. They just do not make the transition to driving on snow and ice, and they need to do that. They need to slow down. They need to create more space around their vehicle, and you need to start braking back from where you actually want to get stopped, okay? And then creep up to where you actually want to get stopped, all right? And I think there's a post coming up. I drove to Calgary a couple of times over the holidays, and from where I live, it's about 6.5 hours to Calgary. And it's through the mountains in the wintertime, and the stretch between Golden, British Columbia and Revelstoke, so that would be going east, going west rather, going east, it's Revelstoke to Golden. That stretch of roadway is dirty. They put a lot of sand on it, a lot of salt down. It was wet, and when I came back the first time, I come back in the dark. And let me tell you, driving that stretch of road in the dark is challenging, to say the least. It's really difficult to see, and you have to find all of your landmarks to be able to drive safely at night, and even figure out where the road is and if you're in your lane of traffic. So know that if you ever come through the mountains in the wintertime, make sure that you definitely have your windshield washer fluid topped up, because I asked a question here on the community tab on the weekend about how often people fill up windshield washer fluid. Some said, once a month, maybe once a winter. And I'm the same. I rarely use my windshield washer fluid, right? However, I think I went through the better part of a gallon of 4 liters of windshield washer fluid just in that run going to Calgary. There was so much goop and yuck and gunk coming off the other trucks and those types of things. So to keep the windshield clean, I do use a lot of washer fluid. And then when you go in to the fuel stations, make sure you use that squeegee and clean your headlights off too, unless you have one of those high-end cars that have windshield wipers on the headlights. But the old buggy doesn't have those. So, elevator fan, you're feeling better. That is great, my friend. If you start to skid slowly, take your foot off the pedal and coast through it. Not so much coast through it, but you want to steer in the direction you want to go, elevator fan. But you're absolutely right. You want to get your foot off the accelerator, and you definitely don't want to be braking when you're losing traction in a skid and those types of things. Amy, this is the first time winter driving for me. Yesterday it snowed here in Port Alberni, BC. Yes, and there has been a lot of snow. And as well, the images coming out of, I think it was Kamloops, BC. I'm not entirely sure, but of course it's pretty hilly in parts of Kamloops. And of course the car sliding down the hill as the driver is holding the brakes on, praying and hoping for dear life that the vehicle is going to find traction and get stopped. But it doesn't. If you find yourself in that situation where you're on a hill and it is sheer ice and you are just sliding down the hill with the brakes on, you got to get your foot off the brake. You got to allow those tires to turn in order to get traction so that you can steer the vehicle. If the tires aren't turning, you're not going to be able to steer the vehicle, and you're just going to hope on a wing and a prayer that it doesn't run into something and bang off things while you're going down the roadway. Mallory, we got snow here in the Maritimes over the weekend, so winter has arrived too. We are expecting rain and wind for tomorrow. We're expecting more rainfall, so that's what's happening here in the west. Gilberter, I didn't say that right, but Allure, is this time that it's tricky when you have to expect timing to decelerate on yellow lights if there's no timer in the traffic lights? Yes, it can be a little tricky if there aren't timers on the traffic lights to indicate that the light is going to turn yellow. However, there are lots of other indicators that the light is going to turn yellow. For example, you didn't see the light turn green, so you don't know when it's going to go yellow, okay? So just assume. If traffic is really backed up on the cross streets, that means it's been green. Your light has been green for a long time, and there's a possibility it could go yellow. Also, if you have a flashing hand as opposed to a timer, it's an indicator that it could go yellow. There's no vulnerable road users in the intersection, i.e. pedestrians crossing the roadway. So there's a lot of indicators to tell you that potentially the light could go yellow as you're approaching the intersection. So just watch all of that other stuff. Happy 24. Colin, my friend, how are you? Awesome. Thank you for dropping into the live stream and saying Happy New Year. Blessed, my year is going absolutely fantastic. Things are really good here. Lots of changes, lots of motivation to get going here on the channel and get moving. Jackson, hello, my friend. Says Tomas, I am good. How are you, my friend? Lem, I struggle all the time turning curbs. What solution can you give? Okay, Lem, when you're going around the corner, look where you want the vehicle to go. The vehicle is going to go where you want it to go. The other piece I would suggest to you is to go to a parking lot, practice your slow speed maneuvers, do circles in the parking lot, park into spaces between, beside other vehicles, back around corners, those types of things. All of that is going to improve your overall driving. Right now, you're not really too comfortable with the steering and the accelerator and the brake. Those are the primary controls that you need to get more comfortable with. So I would suggest that you do some slow speed maneuvers in the parking lot, like backing into a driveway at home, driving into the driveway, going slow, and then just maneuvering the steering wheel and those types of things, and all of that will really help you out and improve your turns. As well, Corey will put up the video for you on how to turn right and left, and that will really help you out too. Colin, how do I keep my vehicle from having mechanical issues? Colin, what kind of mechanical issues are you having on your vehicle? We can definitely talk about that after the presentation, because I just put a lot of money into the buggy. It's just something that happens. Okay, just practice, you'll get it. Yes, indeed. Jackson, this Saturday I'm going to have a driving lesson, and if I do it right, I could be test ready. Awesome. That is great news, my friend. Elevator fan says that there in Indiana, they're supposed to get 5 to 8 inches of snow. That's a good dump of snow. Brendan, I try to drive carefully in the snow and ice, but my concern is other drivers. And Brendan, the trick and what I'm going to tell you here in the presentation is manage space well around your vehicle. It's more important in the winter time to have that space around your vehicle. More space. Instead of the 3 to 4 second following distance, you want to have that kind of 5 second following distance in front of your vehicle so that you can get stopped early. And I'll tell you a story about this. Years ago, when I was driving truck in the 1990s, I was hauling garbage trailers. I was driving transfer trucks from Ontario into the state of Michigan in the United States. And one day, like freezing rain, it was sheer ice on the roadways. And the highway coming out of the dump, it was a 2-lane highway. There was a minivan in front of me, and I was managing my following distance really well. I had like a 6-8 second following distance. It was like half a mile at least. And the woman in the minivan, I know it was a woman in the minivan because she looked right at me, lost control of her minivan, went around in 3 circles in front of me, and I basically just brought the truck to a nice controlled stop. And by the time I got the truck stopped, I was 4 car lengths away from her, and she was facing me in my lane, and she was just, the look on her face, she was absolutely white. I will never forget the look on her face when she's sitting there looking at me, and this tractor trailer is like just stopped in her lane right in front of her. And that's what you got to do in the wintertime. You have to, it is imperative to keep that space in front of your vehicle. So know that. Williams, is it true that we should keep our gas tank at least 50% at the lows during winter? Yes, you should. Kavanaugh, the reason that they tell you to keep it over half a tank is that every fuel tank on every car has a little bit of water in it. And as the level in the fuel tank goes down and the vehicle is hot, you're driving it and then you park it and it's cold, what happens is that vapor, that water vapor inside the fuel tank condenses, right? It becomes water. It actually becomes ice because it doesn't pass through the liquid stage. It just goes from vapor into ice, and then that's what causes you to freeze up. But if your tank is full, it'll reduce the amount of water vapor in your tank and it won't freeze. So it'll reduce the chances of freezing. Now, if you have really cold temperatures in the wintertime, like minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 40 degrees Celsius, it's recommended that you put some antifreeze fuel additive into the tank as well, and that will help prevent freezing. 2 years ago at the wintertime, we drove to Calgary and we were in Golden, and it was minus 35 degrees Celsius, which is almost minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit as well. It was super cold. And before I parked the buggy at night, we stayed in a hotel. I went and filled up the fuel tank for that very reason. And if I know that it's going to be cold and I'm on a road trip, I'll make sure that I go and get some fuel additive as well to put in the buggy. Klaus, from which year is the picture in the welcome site at your presentation? Welcome. Oh, the second slide is the one with me as a bus driver. Is that the one you're talking about, Klaus? Okay. Isaac, what happens if you drive with chains on the tires on a road without snow? Isaac, it's really hard on the pavement, on the road surface for one thing, and it's really noisy on your car. I don't know if you've ever driven a vehicle that's had chains mounted on it, but they are noisy. And if they come loose, they potentially could do some damage to your vehicle as well. I don't recommend chains on your vehicle. I mean, unless you're off-roading it in the back bush somewhere, then maybe, yeah, have chains on your vehicle. But I mean, for the normal people, I mean, we don't need chains on our vehicles. I mean, if you have good quality tires and you have an all-wheel drive vehicle, you're going to be just fine in a lot of snow. Retired, my car has traction control. What is the function of traction control? Okay, retired, traction control will redirect power from one side of the vehicle to the other side of the vehicle. No, from one tire to another tire if it detects wheel spin. Okay, now you will have a button, retired, sorry, you will have a button in the vehicle that will allow you to turn the traction control off. Now, there are places, not so much where you're living in North Carolina there, but there are places where they get snow in Minnesota and northern Michigan and places like that where you get deep snow and you need some tire spin. So in order to go through that and get through that snow, you want to take a run at it, you want to get some momentum, and you want tire spin, so you'll turn the traction control off to be able to get through that. That's what the purpose of that is. Now, on curves, corners, and turns, the traction control will shift power. So, for example, if you're going around a left-hand corner, it will shift power in the all-wheel drive system to the wheels on the outside of the curve so that it will assist in pushing you through the curve and maintaining traction. That's what the purpose of the traction control is. Klaus, yes, the bus driver picture. The bus driver picture was, I can almost tell you the exact date. It was March 2002 that picture was taken. I was just learning how to drive highway coaches. I was in the training period with another driver at the time. And there was some very nice passengers on the bus. Actually, one of them was from Ireland, and she was touring around Australia, and she was coming to Melbourne, and actually I was living in Melbourne, and I said to her, hey, do you need a place to crash for a couple of days? And so she actually came and stayed at my house for a couple of days. So her and her friends took the picture at the time. Retired, you're most welcome, my friend. Blessed, what kind of brand of tires you recommend? Was it Michelin? Yes, Blessed, if I have the opportunity to get Michelin tires, I will buy Michelin tires. Love Michelin tires, okay? Okay, Elevator Fan, all the best, my friend. And if I haven't got to your question, you have a question, just put it back down at the bottom. That way that I can look at it, I can definitely help you out there. Allure, truck drivers specifically, drivers doesn't observe space management. Yes, you're absolutely right about that in terms of space management for sure. There are some pickup trucks, and I don't know what it is about pickup trucks, but they like to be really close to you when you're driving. Tech, I got my learner's permit here in the US about 2 months ago, and my mom has been teaching me, but I was wondering what you recommend is the best way to practice and prepare for the test. Okay, so Isaac, The best way to prepare for the test, the best way to get used to the car first, you have to get used to the car. That's the first thing that I help students to do. And I suggest you go to a parking lot and work in a parking lot, backing up, driving in circles, do forward figure eights, do reverse figure eights, and you can even go and rent some pylons. I find that the delineators are the best, the 3 foot tall, 1 meter tall delineators, and then you can drive forward up to them, touch with the front of the car, touch with the back of the car. That way you can figure out where your blind areas are around your vehicle, and you can get used to the primary controls, the steering wheel, the brake, and the accelerator, and how that is going to work for you. That's one of the first things that I recommend before going out on the roadways. And then go out on the roadways in low density traffic in residential areas, work on your stops, figure out the difference between 2-way stops and 4-way stops, because there is a difference. All 4-way stops will have a rectangle underneath the stop sign that will say 4-way stop, 3-way stop, or all-way stop. And you need to know the difference in the two procedures, because there's different procedures for those two different types of stop signs, all right? And then once you're comfortable driving around residential areas, right and left turns, then move out into heavier traffic, driving on highways, driving at night. Try and get as much experience as you can. Now, as you get nearer to your test date, kind of 6 to 8 weeks before your test date, stick with the same vehicle and practice what's on your driving test, okay? You can figure this out from your friends who've already taken their driver's test, from other people. Go online, Google it. What is on your driver's test, okay? Are you parallel parking between cones? Are you parallel parking out on the roadway? If you're in the state of Ohio, you're gonna have to do the Ohio maneuverability test. If you're in the state of California, you're going to have to reverse 50 feet along a curb. So know what's on the driver's test. And then in the kind of the week leading up to your driver's test, make sure you practice in and around the driving test center. Now, if you're not taking driving lessons with a driving instructor, I highly recommend that you book one lesson with a driving instructor. He or she will be able to give you feedback on your skills, what skills you need to improve for the driver's test. And as well, he or she will take you on the test route that the examiners are going to take you on, because they know all the places where they do the parallel parking, where they do the 3-point turns and those types of things. So whatever the cost is for an hour or 45 minutes with a driving instructor is going to pay dividends. So do that and hire a driving instructor in 3 weeks, 2 weeks before your driving test, and then you can know exactly which skills you need to work on to be successful on your driver's test first time. 1247, I'm currently taking driving lessons. Is it worth taking lessons on the highway driving when you are comfortable driving? 1247, if you're already comfortable with driving on the highway and you're comfortable merging, that's the biggest thing for new drivers, is learning how to merge and being comfortable with merging. If you're already comfortable with that and driving on the highway, then no, you probably don't need to take driving lessons out on the highway. You probably just need to have them in the city. Rawson, can you use all seasons washer fluid for the winter time? Excellent question, Rawson. Windshield washer fluid in the wintertime, if you get cold, it has to be rated for -40, okay? You don't want to put anything else in there, because as we know, when water freezes, it expands. The tank for the washer fluid on your vehicle is plastic, and if it's full, it'll expand and it'll break the tank, and then you'll have to replace the tank, and that can be a bit of a pain in the butt. So make sure that you use washer fluid that is rated for -40 degrees Celsius, minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, to make sure that you don't damage your vehicle, okay? Carrie, on icy roads, if someone pulls out in front of you, what is the best way to avoid at least minimize the accident? No, you can't just hit the brake. Carrie, if somebody pulls out in front of you, and probably they're not going to pull out in front of you, that is unlikely in the wintertime. Most people tend to be more cautious. One of the ways that you can avoid or prevent people pulling out in front of you is make sure that you're driving with your headlights on, okay? Just get in the habit of getting in the car and turning your headlights on. People are less likely to pull out in front of you. Now, you're driving down the road, somebody pulls out in front of you from the right, okay? Now, what you want to try and do is you want to try and move to the right to try and reduce the impact. You also want to try and reduce the speed as much as possible. The reason that you want to try and move right is that they're going left they're going this way and you want to go that way. Okay, you want to go in opposite directions. The other piece about this is you want to try and get off on an angle. You don't want to hit square on with the other car. Okay, that's going to reduce the amount of damage on your vehicles and those types of things. If possible, and if you have the choice, you know, don't T-bone them, don't run into them if you can at all. If you can get the vehicle sideways and you know, come in, so they're here like this, they're like this, they pull out in front of you, you're driving in this direction. If you can come out and hit the whole side of the car on the side of their car, that's going to be absolutely perfect. However, you have a fraction, you know, a few seconds, maybe if you're lucky, to kind of figure out what you're going to do. And it has to be kind of instantaneous, your defensive strategy or what you're going to be doing at that point. So, you know, if you can get stopped, if you can bail onto the side road, if you can get around on the side road, that's something too. But every situation is going to be different. And the fact that somebody pulls out in front of you, like I said, in ice and snow, people tend not to do that because they know that they don't have a great deal of traction when they're starting off, and they're not going to gain as much speed to be able to tear out in front of you. So again, this comes back to situational awareness and you driving down the road, you locating intersections as you're driving down the roadway and going, hey, there's an intersection there, there's a car coming up, that car potentially could be pulling out. And once you see that and identify that hazard, you're covering the brake and you've got your foot over the brake pedal and you're getting ready just in case that person does pull out in front of you. So there's a lot of ways to prevent running into that person in the event that they do pull out in front of you. You're already ready. You've already identified that hazard and you've already covered the brake and reduced your reaction time. Mallory, why is it important to practice around driving test centers before you take your driving test? Excellent question, Mallory. The reason it's important is because you want to locate where the schools are. You want to locate the different kinds of intersections you're going to be dealing with. If you're taking your driver's test in Duluth, Minnesota, for example, which is a rural town in the middle of northern Minnesota, it's going to be very different than taking your test in downtown New York. New York is going to be very busy, lots of traffic, lots of pedestrians, malls, those types of things. So you're going to be dealing with all of that. In small town Duluth, Minnesota, you're going to have like one traffic light at the main intersection that you're going to be dealing with. As well, you want to know where the school zones are because school is in session right now. If you speed in a school zone, that's an automatic fail on a driver's test. You also want to know where tricky intersections are. You want to know what traffic signs are in and around the test center. You want to know if you have to parallel park between cones, because if you have to parallel park between cones, they probably have those set up in the test center, and you want to go in off hours after, you know, in the evening or on the weekends, and you want to practice parallel parking between those cones and whatnot. You also want to know what traffic signs there are and what kind of weird, unusual traffic signs there might be. For example, when we did the driving test with Big Mac Sam there in New York City, he was showing me places where the stop line was like a quarter of a block. It was like 300 feet back from the intersection where you had to stop for the intersection, which was very weird for me. But, you know, at other intersections that were on an angle, and it was kind of weird to make the left-hand turn and whatnot. So you want to get familiar with the roads, the signs, and the institutions in and around the driving test center. As well, if you take a test with an instructor, with a driving instructor before your test, they're going to show you where the examiners do the slow speed maneuvers, the 3-point turns, the parallel parks, and those types of things. So you're going to be much more prepared for your driving test because you're familiar with the test center. And remember, we always study to the test. We do much better in high school when we study to the tests and do old practice tests for science or chemistry or whatever course that we're taking. It's the same thing with your driving test. You want to practice in and around the test center where you're going to be taking your test. 1247, is merging into a high or expressway hard, and how do you time it when there is cars coming? Okay, so 1247, Corey will put up the videos for you on merging, but essentially when you come out on the on-ramp, you want to pick your spot out on the highway, and then you want to aim for that spot. That will really help you out. When you get out onto the straightaway, you might still be on the on-ramp, but get out on the acceleration lane. Get your foot into it, get it up to speed, and then aim for that spot and merge out onto the highway. Know that the onus of responsibility for merging out onto the roadway is on you. Other traffic on the roadway might move over, might create a space for you, but they are not under any obligation to do that for you. If you haven't done this before, I would suggest that you get somebody who's experienced and have them go with you the first couple of times you do it. Or, as you were asking me before, find a driving instructor and do some lessons on the highway and do that merging, because it is a tough skill for new drivers, especially those that haven't done it before. Shoulder check. Yes, as Larry just said, make sure that you shoulder check. Shoulder check, shoulder check, shoulder check. And for those of you doing a driver's test, every time you change directions of the vehicle, shoulder check, signal, okay? Because we want to have a backup. Yes, you're observing. Yes, you're looking around. You're shoulder checking. You have a 360-degree awareness around your vehicle. But if you make a mistake because you're tired, you miss something, we're moving at speed, your backup is communication. You signal the position of your vehicle. All those things are going to keep you safe. And driving is a social activity. We have to work together. And the way that we work together is by communicating with other road users on the roadway. Because it's not just cars and vehicles that we're dealing with on the roadway. We're dealing with pedestrians. We're dealing with cyclists. We're dealing with scooters, okay? And the other piece to keep yourself safe in the wintertime and every other time during the year is defensive driving. And the basis of defensive driving is not falling victim to the "I have the right of way" myth. Okay? This is my new phrase that I've now coined. The right of way myth. It's a myth. I have the right of way. That attitude is going to get you into trouble. Okay? So if you see that somebody else is crossing your path, but you think, oh my God, I got the right of way, you may not have the right of way, okay? Do not be bent and determined that you have the right of way and you are not going to give it up to the other person, okay? Sometimes just letting your foot off the throttle for like 3 seconds is going to prevent you being involved in a crash. Because imagine how bad you would feel if you hit somebody else on a bicycle or a kid on a skateboard, okay? Sometimes we just have to give it up for a few seconds and carry on in our merry way for the rest of our day, having an awesome new year, okay? KGB, on commercial vehicles, coaches, and buses, when you get the warning, your exhaust is overheated, is it still safe to proceed in doing the route? Absolutely not, KGB. If you have a warning symbol going off on your commercial vehicle, you need to stop, you need to figure out what it is, and you need to get that cooled down, because if you overheat any part of the vehicle, the exhaust, the manifold, the engine block, the valves, the pistons, the oil, whatnot, you are going to burn something up. And if it's exhaust, most diesel engines on commercial vehicles, buses, transit buses, coaches, big trucks, semi-trucks, those types of things are all attached to a turbocharger. And when you overheat the exhaust, you're overheating the turbocharger. And ask Colin there, who had to replace the turbocharger on his car, how expensive those are. Very, very, very expensive. And they're even more expensive on big trucks, transit buses, and big diesel engines. So know that. If your warning bell is going off, stop and figure out what it is. Because authorities that you work for, people in the company, the executives, your supervisors, your foreman, your dispatch, those people, they are going to get very, 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 very excited when you blow up a $40,000 diesel engine because you didn't stop and pull over after you noticed that a warning light was going on. All right. 1247, you are most welcome. Eardrums, pretend everyone on the road is the bad driver and be defensive and calm. Keep the speed limit. Always in horrible winter. Yes, indeed. That is true. It's like I say, I love people. I love drivers. I love teaching you about safety on roadways and those types of things. But I don't trust drivers. I don't trust them at all. And I am always in a defensive posturing when I'm walking around, when I'm riding my bicycle, when I'm driving my car. I'm always thinking, what if this person does this? And it's also about experience. The more experience we get, the easier it becomes to recognize hazards on the roadways and things that potentially could go wrong. For example, driving down the roadway in a city where there's transit buses and the transit bus is pulled over to the side of the road. Okay? Alighting and taking on passengers. Okay? I'm on high alert. If I didn't see that bus pull over, but I see it sitting there and parked, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to go very slowly, because what if there are passengers getting off the bus and they just walk around in front of the bus and step out in front of traffic when you're passing the transit bus? I worked on a case a few years ago that's what happened. Transit bus stopped on the side of the road. The passenger, young male teenager, got off the bus, walked around the front of the bus and stepped out in front of a truck, a pickup truck that was passing the bus. And even at 30 kilometers an hour, still threw the kid like 100 feet down the roadway. So those types of things, transit buses, places where potentially there could be high pedestrian traffic, that should have alarm bells going off in your head that there could be something that could potentially go wrong, and that you should be putting techniques in place that are going to keep both you safe and other people safe on the roadway, because you might be deemed responsible, right? And transit bus drivers, I will tell you right now that if something happens to a passenger or happens to another road user and you are a transit bus driver, the personal injury lawyers come out of the woodwork when that happens, because they are looking for something to go wrong, because they are going to sue the transit company for liability. All right, know that. 1247, since learning to drive, I notice more mistakes other drivers make. Even when I'm driving with my instructor, some drivers never indicated they were turning. Yeah, that's pretty much par for social driving, that other drivers simply don't signal when they're going around, when they're turning and those types of things. So know that for sure. Williams, when items do you recommend for a winter driving emergency kit to keep inside the vehicle? Excellent question. Corey will put up the video for you on winter survival kits. Essentially, in a winter survival kit, snow shovel, lots of blankets in the vehicle, phone charger so that you keep your phone charged so you can call for help if you end up in the ditch and stranded, those types of things. Non-perishable foods like candies, those types of things, something to melt water with, a pot, a candle to keep you warm, traction mats. Some vehicles might even have sand, like if you have a pickup truck, you're going to need extra weight in the back. If you take prescription medications on a regular basis and need those, keep those in the vehicle as well if you get stranded. That's pretty much it. Jumper cables, if your vehicle won't start and you need to jump. Corey will put up the video for you on how to boost a car with battery cables and whatnot. You can buy winter survival kits, but you can simply just make your own, right? And one of the things that I do have in the vehicle when I'm driving in the wintertime, I will have all my winter gear. Boots, snow pants, my jacket, hat, mitts, scarves, in case that my vehicle does break down or I need to walk or those types of things. I will have all of that stuff in the vehicle so that I'm not going to get cold while I'm trying to work on the car or get the car unstuck from the get the vehicle out of the ditch and whatnot. So yeah, all of that for winter survival kits. And as I said, Corey will put up the video for you there. Corey's already put up the video. Thank you for that, Corey. That's awesome. Carrie, another type of bus to always be careful around if stopped is school buses. Yes, absolutely. And Carrie, it boggles my mind that people don't see school buses. I mean, in North America, they're yellow. They're yellow and they have flashing lights and retractable stop signs. How can you not see a school bus? That is one of the things that just mystifies me, and I cannot understand why. Transit buses I can understand because it kind of blends into the background. You know, it's got all these signs and billboards on it and those types of things. But a school bus, that's a different kettle of fish, which just boggles my mind. 1247, sadly to say, in New York City, most transit drivers brake too hard every time they come to a stop and people fall on each other. Yes, I've been on transit buses like that where they're incredibly aggressive. And then I've been on transit buses where drivers are incredibly great. And, you know, because I've been on transit buses all over the world, Australia, Europe, China, England, here in Canada, North America, you know, there's some good ones and there's some bad ones. And, you know, unfortunately, the good ones outnumber the bad ones by quite a bit. But you certainly remember those bad ones when they're jamming on the brakes and throwing you around the bus and whatnot. Klaus, I don't trust other drivers too as pedestrian. Always look over your shoulder. Absolutely. Larry, the buses have the right of way in Nova Scotia. Must yield when bus signals full stop. Yes, they do. Most transit buses in most cities have the yield to bus on roads rather that are less than 60 kilometers an hour, I believe. I need to look that up, but I think it's 60 kilometers an hour, 40 miles an hour that they can pull out. But that doesn't give them the right to just signal and pull out, okay? That's not what that is. That's like, you know, they signaled, it's clear, they can pull out. It doesn't give them the right to just like pull out in front of other people, okay? So, but yes, you're right. Some of them will do that. Will, I have my test in a month. It's my 5th go. Decided to have a few lessons this time. Your tips and info are helpful. Thank you for that. And thank you, Will, for stopping back and letting us know we were able to help you out. Good luck. You're going to get it this time. Okay? We're praying for you, my friend. Sending you good energy. Klaus, in Germany, we have just coach buses for school kids and students. And Klaus, yeah, it's the same thing in Australia. It's just coach buses and those types of things. We don't, it's only here in North America that we have the yellow school buses, but people still don't see them for whatever reason. Blesseds, send some prayers my way too. I will need for this week, and absolutely blessed, we are sending you prayers and energy. All the best, my friend. When to go? Better to use public transport or don't go out in the winter than to drive. Yes, if you're not comfortable driving in the wintertime, then it is recommended that you just stay home and wait until the roads are clear. Now, the other piece about driving in the wintertime, and I'll just end with this one last point, the main roads are going to be clear, well salted and sanded and those types of things, okay? It's when you get into the residential areas and farther away from the main roads that you're going to end up on snow and ice and a lot of uncleared roadways and those types of things, okay? Now, that does not negate that you need to manage space. You need to slow down back from where you actually want to stop, and then you want to creep up, okay? The other piece about intersections, especially if there's a lot of snow still on the roadways and they haven't been able to clear it off down to the bitumen, intersections are where it's going to be most slippery, because what happens is the car comes up, hits the brakes, the wheels lock up, and the car slides. And when it slides, it creates friction, and friction, as we know, the byproduct of that is heat. It melts the snow and ice a little bit, and you get a layer of water on top of it. And what happens is it becomes extremely slippery at the intersection. Think of it like an ice hockey rink that has just been flooded by the Zamboni. That's when it's most slippery, because it has a layer of water on top of it that lubricates the ice. And this is how ice skates work. And it's the same principle at intersections. So slow down back from the intersection and then creep up to the intersection. That way you're going to know that you're going to get your vehicle stopped at the intersection, and the intersection is going to be slippery, very, very slippery. And if you do get caught out, move to the right, try and get out of the tracks so you can get a bit of traction to get your vehicle stopped. All right, thank you so much for your great questions. Awesome live stream. All the winter driving tips, questions help me to give you the information out there and make you a safer, smarter driver. You had a test in the last couple of weeks that you've been successful on. Congratulations. You have a test coming up in the next week or so. Good luck on that. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. All the best.